As Sarno walked out of the gates of Fire Rock Castle, he thought back on what would take him, a dwarf, minstrel, brought into the service of Lord Vakesh, right, to this point where he is now leaving Lord Vakesh's service, to go out and to follow his dream, right, touring and seeing the wider world around him. As he had woken that morning, he found Lord Vakesh there in his room, rather disturbingly so. Uh, And Lord Vakesh shared with him that the time of his service was ended, and that he was free to go. As the Lord Vakesh knew, right, was his dream to leave to see more of what was out in the wider world. He was paid, not much, 10 gold, and sent on his way. He did take some time to provision himself before he left. Um, but now he was out, ready to see whatever the world had to show him. Welcome to Profi Plays, the next, I guess, series I'm going to do here. So, if you watched my, I guess, my Shadow Dark series, at the end there, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do next, as that just ended. So I debated possibly doing going back to Dungeon Crawl Classics because that one I did literally end. I literally moved away from that mid dungeon, uh, but then I got thinking. And I decided I didn't want to do Dungeon Crawl Classics really for one very specific reason, and that is that in I want to say in my real life, no, but in person, I'm probably going to be running some Shadow Dark for a group. Uh, so one thing that I realized is that that meant that I didn't want to be running a bunch of similar systems, and so anything in kind of that D&D camp, the roll a d20, that kind of system, I I wanted to steer clear of anything that was too similar to the thing that I'm going to be running. Otherwise, I would start getting things mixed up in my head. And well, Dungeon Crawl Classics is I like it better than say Dungeons and Dragons itself. Um, Nonetheless, it is close enough to Shadow Dark that I decided that I didn't want to do that. But then that opened up the possibility. Either, right, one, I start doing more Shadow Dark again. Um, Finish up one campaign, can pick up with another. I mean, I already have a setting, right? I already have some characters in the background anyway that I could pull out. We could explore them more, or maybe do something entirely different. Right, so I made up a list. Right, so I had one option was Shadow Dark, another option was Scarlet Heroes, another option was Iron Sworn, which is those was the do solo. Iron Sworn is a really big name. Uh, Scarlet Heroes also was kind of groundbreaking in terms of actually being explicit about having solo oriented material. And so we had those. What else did I think about? And there were many that I set aside because they were too similar to Shadow Dark. So something like ICRPG, very, very similar to Shadow Dark, and I don't want to get the rules mixed up in my brain. And so what else? Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing was another one that I looked at, and I want to say there was one more, which I'm not recalling off the top of my head. But I wanted to stay within the realm of fantasy, but at the same time, uh, either have it be Shadow Dark or something very different, right, from Shadow Dark, right? So like Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing is a totally different system. I would not get that mixed up in my brain with the Shadow Dark that I'm planning to run. Right, so I did the most reasonable thing I could. I put my list into Excel and I instructed Excel to give me a random number between, it was like 1 and 5, because I want to say that there were 5 options. What's that fifth one? Boy, that's going to bother me. It's going to bother me. So Scarlet Heroes, Iron Sworn, Shadow Dark. And there were two other ones. I think I probably already mentioned one of them here. My brain is not working very well. Remember the like Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing, and there was another one that was again very different from this others, but it doesn't particularly matter. is what got selected was Shadow Dark. Right, so I thought it was the Shadow Dark. It turns out, uh, I want to say the dice disagreed, but it wasn't the dice. It was the Excel spreadsheet disagreed. So this is where we are. Right, so we're going to be staying in that same universe. If you want to watch my other Shadow Dark series, you can. I believe it's just labeled Shadow Dark Episode 1, Episode 2, and so on. This one, though, I'm going to name this series. These are the stories of Sarno. Sarno is the character that I rolled up, which I have just introduced you to. He is a dwarf. He is a fighter. He is starting out level 1, right? And I decided to have him be a lone adventurer at the beginning. Because one of the things that I realized with my previous Shadow Dark campaign is that I felt like I didn't really get to know the characters very well. Right, so I think having fewer of them is going to force me to know, at least personality wise, who he is a bit better. Now, in terms of kind of his background, we already got dwarf fighter. He is a lawfully aligned dwarf with a minstrel background. So I figure the minstrel background suggests that he did spend some time traveling in the past, right? So he has been to places, and he really loves that. And that was something that when he enlisted, right, as a fighter for Lord Vakesh, that is something that he found that he really did miss, right? So that is where Lord Vakesh knew this and released him, right, from service here at the beginning of this series. I decided personality wise that uh, drawing from that minstrel background, right, he is somewhat charming and he does have his highest stat is not charisma, but it is a bit above average. He does have a +1 on that. His highest stat is strength, +2, which makes him a good fighter. Right, so in particular with melee weapons. He did not get much in terms of gold. As I mentioned, he had 10 gold pieces, which the way that fighters work in Shadow Dark, you have a weapon mastery, and I thought, okay, thematically, he's a dwarf. He should obviously have an axe. This seems clear to me, after all, as somebody who likes Lord of the Rings. You have my axe, right? That is what the dwarf would say, right? So he has a weapon mastery in a great axe. The problem is that a great axe by itself costs 10 gold. So if he bought that, he would have nothing else except literally the clothes on his back. He also has what I rolled for his talent is that he has an AC bonus for leather armor. So leather armor is more effective for him than for most people. However, leather armor also by itself costs 10 gold pieces. So he does not have the leather armor either. So he has kind of these latent abilities, which I'm sure he took advantage of when he was working for Lord Vakesh and was actually like granted as part of his job a weapon, probably an axe, I suspect, is what he was trained in, and also armor. I'm guessing leather armor, probably because that is what he's good at. Uh, but he did not own those. When he left, he did not take them with him, right? So he had to spend the grand majority of that 10 gold really on just simple stuff like torches and rations and like flint and steel so we can actually light the torch easily without having to go through a check. Once I spent all of that money, the only thing that he really had money left for weapon wise was a mace. He's also unarmed, therefore. So he's a level 1 character. Uh, the big plus, though, is that his HP is reasonable. Because he's a fighter, he gets a little bit better HP die to roll, and also because he is a dwarf, right, that gives him an extra HP bonus and first level. Right, so he does have 7 hit points. It does give him a little bit of leeway that he won't necessarily automatically die. So we'll see what happens, and that's of course why we play. All right, so I don't really want to do a whole lot with this. I just want to introduce the new character, let you know what's coming, and I want to find out what his mission is. Because literally right now, all I have is that, right, here we are on the map. So make room for it. Right, he's leaving Lord Vakesh's castle right here. Right, he doesn't really know where he's going, right? So he's in the middle of the forest. Now, my guess is because he's a dwarf, he probably came from the nearby mountains. So I'm guessing somewhere around here is probably where he would call home because there are mountains over this direction. So it's only a couple miles away, right? So my guess is that somewhere in here would have been where his home was. Okay. So he doesn't know where he's headed. I'm going to suggest, and I'm suggesting this to myself, so I'll probably take the suggestion, that he's going to be acting on the basis of a rumor. And I have, from the Shadow Dark Quick Start, a rumor table. Right, so I'm going to use this, right, to try to inform what he's going to be looking for first. Now, his personal goal is he just wants to see the world, so he's perfectly happy to travel around. So we're definitely going to be making good use of those travel rules that I had introduced before. Right, there we go. We'll see if he finds them survivable. Um, these are Shadows of the Wild is here. You can find this free rule supplement. I think I found it linked on Reddit. Remember right? All right. So let's get to that by rolling a D100. 19. There is a hall of golden statues underneath the well. Interesting. So that is the rumor about this. Okay. So it's a hall of golden statues underneath the well. Well, that tells me that that is where we're going to be going. So what I need to do is locate where is this well? I suspect the rumor would include that. Uh, let's actually do this. Where's the well? I'm going to roll 2d6. One of them will be direction, the other one will be distance. So let's use, I'm going to start straight north is going to be a 1 on the direction die. So here's direction. Direction is a 5, right? So that would be, counting around, we're starting here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're heading down this direction, so toward the southwest. Right. And how far? 6. Oh, we're going to have a good travel time then. 6. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So apparently it is the well at this abbey here. So this abbey here, it's what is it? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's C6. I don't know if I've defined that one yet. Um, Let me double check. Okay, that's an A C3. C15. No, I don't think that C6 is defined as of yet. All right. Oh wait, no. Here's some other stuff. So C14, C5, but that is this abbey. So yeah, we need to develop that abbey. Right, so uh, I think that that is our plan then. So he is going to be leaving, he's going to be heading toward this abbey. He is now the problem is that he doesn't have a whole lot of supplies. So we're is there a way that he can get there that doesn't involve him having to? Oh wait, I'm just trying to think of how close we can get him where he would actually have some place like places that are safe to stay without necessarily having to build a campfire all the time. Because he doesn't, he has 3 torches. That's it. He could build a campfire with that. But somebody would have to tend it, which means he really wouldn't get much hope for rest, right? So I think that maybe what he's going to have to do is travel kind of a roundabout way. So he can't go straight there. He's going to have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So yeah, he's going to have to go like this roundabout way to get there because that's going to take him through like castles and villages and abbeys and the like. So everything between here and there, with the exception of right around here, he's going to be places that are occupied where he could possibly find some kind of shelter from those people, as long as they're inclined to take him in, would be the hope. Okay, so I think that this makes some degree of sense, and he's fairly charismatic, so he should be able most of the time to convince people to take him in. Right. So I think maybe what I want to do now, uh, I need to develop this abbey, which that won't take long to do. I'm not going to do that on screen though. I will, however, try say a little bit of travel. So I'm going to write down where we are in the timeline right now. We are morning, right? So we're opening in the morning. Now, because he is traveling alone, that means that there is nobody to keep watch. He's going to have to lead the way, and he is himself the one walking. Now, bad news, his intelligence is bad. It's really bad. However, he is also a minstrel, which means he has had experience traveling before. So I think that I'm going to say that because of that, he does have advantage on these travel rolls. I'm going to go ahead and roll this. Right, so I remember that the travel rules are designed for a 6 mile hex. These are 2 mile hexes. So each time that he is traveling, he's hiking, he has to lead his own way. But as he's doing that, he can travel, I believe it is three. One, two, three. Yeah, 3 hexes. I believe that that's the travel pace. Let me double check that because I might actually be wrong about that. See, hexes per round of travel. If he's hike walking is just 1 hex, that would be 3 hexes for us once we do the translation. All right. So I think that that is what he is going to do then. Right. So we are traveling. One, two, three. So we're traveling here, right, to the village in A5, which I don't know whether that one's fully developed yet or not, but we'll see if we even get there. We don't know. All right, so this is a DC of 12. I'm trying to roll 12, but I'm at a -2 with advantage, so I do get to roll twice and take the better. Rolling twice, taking the better. That's 18 -2 is 16. Yes, he does. Thank you, advantage. He does manage to get there to the village in A5. And A5 may actually be where we have to pick up next time, as I'm going to check, see how developed I have that. Oh, that village is actually somewhat developed here. Um, yeah, so it's a village called Giant River. Okay, so that's where he's going to get to, and I think that next time we'll be picking up in Giant River to see what happens to Sarno, our dwarf. As for now, thanks for watching. This is Prof. E, signing off.